communications spectrum, and it's all about multi-versatility, wearing multiple hats. But I've also worked in teams as well, where everyone within the specific team is assigned a specific criteria or area within corporate communications that needs to be taken care of. And I've also been through an experience during my corporate era where I've worked at a cinema advertising company, which was a lot of fun, by the way, when they went through their entire brand overhaul process. And everything that we are conversing up to this point, they actually did. And to be a part of that experience is also something that I think is highly effective when you're trying to talk to individuals about branding and corporate comms.
And Macy, can we go back real quick? Because we were talking about the brand style guide. Did you reference a message map or messaging at all?
Yes, that's
So,
story brand.
can you tell us a little bit about, like, if we were to do, not if you didn't have an agency or if you didn't have an in-house person, how would you go about creating your key messages or your message map within your company? We didn't really talk about this before, but I think it's relevant to base
Yes.
what we're just talking about.
Yeah, of course. So I would first say you want to start from the beginning. And I want to lay this out there that we naturally, as business owners and companies, we talk about ourselves and we talk about our features of our product. And the whole story brand, if we're going to use that framework, there's tons of frameworks out there, but I will reference the story brand framework, um, is about putting your customer as the hero. It's not about you and the benefits of your company or your product. It's about what they need and going back to understanding on a deeper level of what they need, not just from external, but also internal and philosophical. And when you start there and you position your client as the hero, your messaging will be way clearer and really touch to the point of what they're looking for and how you can come in and solve that. You are the guide. We do demographics, but also what are they struggling with? They're struggling with it. They're spending 7 days a week in the hospital and they're making damn good money, but they have no time with their family. They can't take a vacation because they're on call. So they have a deeper level of they don't really need more income, they need freedom. And what does that freedom mean to them? It means they could take a vacation or they can go to their son's birthday party. So, whatever your client is, I would really say start with understanding who they are, what problems you are solving for them. And remember, they're the hero. You're just the guide to help them reach success.
That's awesome. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think Macy just had her own mic drop moment, so we can
We'll let's just have a moment of silence, please, for Macy. Okay, thank you. We're going to start again. So we've talked about AI over the last 3 days and how it's impacted marketing. So how do we preserve a brand's voice when AI is assisting in content production?
So good. Such a good question because, oh my gosh, if I get on LinkedIn one more time and see all the ChatGPT captions, I'm going to lose it. I think I love AI, by the way. Like, I think it's such a tool. And yeah, there's a few scary parts to it. I'm not going to lie. I think we can all agree with that. But AI, as a marketer, it is your friend. Okay. So don't be afraid of it. ChatGPT, I'll give two references. ChatGPT, you can actually feed ChatGPT your brand guide or your client's brand identity and their problem, their customer, feed ChatGPT all that information and then prompt it to what you need. And it will get a little bit better in giving you that outputs in the actual brand tone. Another on this AI, I want to also I'm giving books, and I guess that's just what I'm doing today is giving little tokens for you to go away with. I love as a marketer, and this platform was actually out before OpenAI. It's called Jasper, and Jasper was developed for marketers. So you don't have to worry about knowing your prompts and really feeding ChatGPT to get what you want. Jasper's already programmed to do that, from blog posts to press releases. And there's a section in Jasper where you can go ahead and set up all of your brand guidelines, from your tone to your customer to your problems you're solving. So I've given a book today, and now I'm going to give you a platform if you want to go check it out. I think Jasper's great. I really should have come up here with some affiliate codes, but
Exactly.
I didn't have this planned. It's just coming out.
Next time.
Well, I think Macy pretty much hit all of the marks that I wanted to say regarding AI, and I think it's quite an interesting time in the communications industry because we're still trying to get a feel as to what artificial intelligence is going to be about, what it's ultimately going to become. There's definitely still some hesitation, especially among us communicators, whether you work in-house or agency, as to how to best implement AI. But I also think this is a prime opportunity for us uh, to be able to embrace artificial intelligence and then be able to set the standard for how we're going to be rolling out artificial intelligence communications in the future. I had last year I was part of the Public Affairs and Government Summit, which is part of the Public Relations Society of America, and I had a very good friend of mine who gave a fantastic presentation about AI from a government standpoint. But most of the things that he conversed about is about the implementations of procedures and protocols, whether it's from your organization, whether in the form as to how you want to utilize AI when you're doing your branding and your messaging, and to ensure that all the models that you're going to implement, as Macy has mentioned, they are interwoven with your own brand protocols and guidelines. In many other ways as well, there's going to be a lot of monitoring, a lot of analytics when you look into AI, but there's also a chance for for everyone to amplify that effectiveness and as well as scalability when you try to utilize your brand and AI combined together.
I know you asked for specifically branding, and that's kind of what we're up here talking about. But I'd also like to say you can use AI to really just speed up your market research. Like, holy cow, it
Yeah.
is such a tool in the market research, and which helps you with your brand, right? You need to
Yes.
understand your consumer on a deeper level. And for me, just now, a month into this new role at an ed tech company, this is my first time being in the education sector, and we're coming up on our sales cycle. And I have a short window of I need to understand my client and what their pain points are, and using ChatGPT to say,
Yep.
hey, this is who I am, this is who I'm trying to reach, where are they hanging out, what are their problems as chief technology officer of a private school,
Mm-hmm.
and how can I best communicate my software as their solution. So on the note of AI, I just want to say it's not only about using it for your branding and messaging, it's also about using it to help speed up your everyday processes as a marketer, like market research.
Good point. Absolutely. So, are there any last tips or tricks that you want to share about keeping consistency with your brand voice across all communication channels?
I would like to say to audit frequently. There should never be a time, and I know this happens a lot, especially in corporate, that it's been 10 years since you've gone back to the drawing board and looked at your tagline or colors or messaging. Don't ever let that happen, especially as a solopreneur or small business owner. It is something that you should be doing on an annual basis, because think about even yourself as a consumer. The way that I like to consume information and ultimately make a sale has changed dramatically
Yeah.
in the past year,
Mm-hmm.
just from all the different advancements with technology. So I would just like to leave. I've already given a book recommendation and a platform recommendation, but I'd also like to just say to remember that branding is never finished.
Right.
And although you can love your work, make sure that you're staying open minded and always wanting to revisit that.
Well, and I think the audit is a really good thing
Yeah.
to talk about a little bit further because it's critical to what you're doing. So I mean, whether you're auditing to go into the process to either define or redefine your brand voice, or it's the ongoing thing, like you said, to do annually. Let's talk a little bit deeper about what is that, because a lot of people don't understand, like they understand tax audit, right? But they don't understand brand
I
audit.
don't know if I actually
I know,
do.
I-
My
like, I-
accountant just asked
I've
me for
heard about
stuff.
it. I was like, it crosses my fingers and my legs.
Yeah.
But what are the steps or the process to go about a brand or communications audit?
All right, so I'll take it off. In my world, is communications audit, and I do this all the time in both arenas. And so, what I like to do is that I typically would like to take an audit and as well as analyze what exactly are the key point immediate areas of need for improvement. That is number one. When you look at a website, or social media channel, or any internal or external medium, you want to identify which areas are are in need of an improvement. You want to be able to identify areas that is how are you going to be able to spruce up your content. It could be content ideas, it could be the amount of times that you post on a particular platform. You could also look into the functionality. Are people accessing the website or any platform with ease? And if so, how often are they looking at the pages? Because that matters. It's all about generating web traffic, and you're trying to bring them in if you are looking at it from a digital communication standpoint. If you're looking at it from an external communication standpoint, then obviously it's really important to do a lot of press coverage tracking, which is a lot of databases. So if you have not heard of them, Cision, Maltwater, Muckrack, those are some of the platforms that you can utilize. There's also Prowly, and of course PR Karma, which is a much more cost-effective option that you can utilize to analyze and audit all of your mediums. And then once you do that, then you'll be able to sit down with your supervisor or your teams, and then you'll be able to give a comprehensive analysis in terms of all the key data, the areas that work that can maintain, the areas that need to improve, and then ultimately you come up with a plan. Sometimes it's you offering recommendations, or it could be also listening to the individuals in the room involved and figuring out what exactly it is that they're ultimately looking for, and as well as doing focus groups and surveys that also can be involved in your audit. And then when you put it all together, then you can come up with a comprehensive communications plan that touches every single asset of your mediums and everything that connects within the corporate communications umbrella.
I'll do a specific perspective on brand audits, and it was around lead generating, specifically lead generators. And I was working with this client, and I went to their website, and their main lead generator was to sign up for our newsletter. Who the hell needs another newsletter in their inbox? Like, seriously, I have so many newsletters. And unless you're, I'm sorry, Jenna Kutcher, who's killing it with her newsletters that are weekly, your customer does not want your newsletter, okay? You've got to go back to what do they need from you? Educators, they need to understand, say for software, they need to understand how your software is going to solve their problem of keeping their kids and their students safe. How could we do that? We could do that in a PDF. I don't know if we need another PDF. We could do it in a short ebook. We could even provide, I know everybody's making courses now, but have you thought about doing a free course? I think Alex Hormozy just rocked the world when he came out with his recent course and book that he just gave away for free. So I would say on lead generation, make sure please take off sign up for your newsletter unless you are also saying you are going to get X, Y, and Z value when you sign up for this monthly or weekly newsletter. So that's a specific brand audit that I just did for lead generation.
I just have to go because I am known for like bunny trails and all those things because what you said, I worked at a building products company in corporate communications or not corporate communications, sorry, in the corporate office, but I started in the field, very much like we could do kind of whatever we wanted, within brand guidelines. And then went to corporate and I was vice president of marketing and sustainability. And they'd never been in the digital space because this is like, whatever,
Yeah.
14, 15, no, 16 plus years ago. And it was building products, which is like pipes, right? Concrete pipes in the ground. And so they were looking for an initiative as far as lead generation of courses. And we did this really inexpensive online course that was called Know Your Pipe. Fantastic. And so it was just like,
pipe.
is HDPE stronger than concrete? And then it was like 6 or 7 words. But anyway, from a lead generation standpoint, I just had to throw that out there because that was like,
No, that's great.
before its time. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, Know Your Pipe. That's hysterical. Like,
And
anyway.
see how you connected with your audience by using a word that they were looking for. So pipe's your key word, but you made it funny and relatable. So they're like, know your pipe. Like, okay, that's a little out there. Exactly.
Okay, so anything else? How are we doing on time? So we can not talk about pipes? 10 minutes. Okay. Do we want 12 minutes?
Do we have any specific questions? Maybe that could lead where we go. Is there anything that we've left uncovered that we should dive deeper into?
We have a question over here.
Okay.
Yes.
I can't see it.
That's hard.
The relation of brand, marketing, and sales. Have you ever had I guess it's a two-part question. Is one,
getting a new or young company to focus less on sales because that's like today, whereas marketing and branding is sort of longer term, but you have to pause and do that because I had a client like this who, when I gave him the 5 personality traits, he said, "Oh, that all 5 perfectly describe us." And then I had to politely explain that no, you have to pick one, and he could not do it. And it was really, how do you explain because it's so it's not very specific what is a brand, right? So how do you go about articulating that to say an engineer or
Yeah.
something like that or a finance guy who just thinks it's all malarkey and snake oil?
So happy to talk about that because the building product space is heavy in engineers, which was very good training for me as a business owner. And so, and a lot of our clients, we work with the CEO and the C-suite. They have no marketing people, and we talk to them about the foundation, and we use the analogy of the house. Like if you don't have your foundation, then you can't build the house. So what is we do vision, which is you could do vision or mission, and then we do personality, and then we do um anyway, we do our process, and then but it takes a while to educate them on that because they don't get that part. They just want to see the results, and they want to, and if they have their big idea or the shiny object that they want to happen, so you just have to sit down and say, wait, whoa, like slow your roll. This is what we need to do, and you just have to be direct, and you have to go at them. I think a couple of times before you finally get their attention. Yes, I have. And it's really hard, particularly so our business is 13 years old. It's easier for me today to do that, and I did it more last year than I ever have. It's hard to do, but I can promise you that you will benefit twofold from it, and because you're going to be as good as your work, right, and as good as your clients. And if that client isn't good enough to see how important that is, that's not going to be a good reflection on your work. So walk away and find the person who gets it.
I think it's almost like you nailed that. Um, we should never have to sell ourselves as a marketer. We just shouldn't. If someone's coming to us and they need brand help, we're the experts. Just like I would not go to my orthopedic surgeon and be like, "Look, do you know what you're doing down there with my knee? Like do you know? Because I don't know if you know." And it's interesting, but in the marketing sector we get that all the time.
Absolutely.
Why do I need this? Well, I don't know. And it's like, you trusted me, and I've just stopped. Like, I'm not going to sell myself after you've already chosen to work with me, right? I'm not saying you don't have to pitch your services. Yes, you have to pitch your services, but once they've decided to work with you, if you are still questioning me, then we're just not a good fit to work together.
F word off. Sorry, I didn't.
And I think our number one word as marketers should be get really comfortable with saying no.
Yeah.
When you're working with someone, especially engineers and finance, their gift is to be very particular.
Very.
And
Yeah.
that can get in their way when they're doing branding. And just the other day we were working on a one liner, and he's an engineer, and he kept wanting the first sentence. Oh my gosh, I was like, it's great, it's solid, but the first sentence, every single word he was going back to. And I get it, it's their business,
Totally.
but you have to be, as the marketer, be okay with saying, no, this is good, we need to stop, this is it, this is solid, and give them that reassurance as well of,
Well, and I think you can do it in a respectful manner,
yes,
right? As long as you're
1000%.
respectful and you
They've come
understand
to you, they're entrusting you.
right. And engineers, like, that's what I wanted to be. Like, I can't even believe that's what I started out as. But I mean, and they're brilliant, and they have these great things,
Brilliant,
and they're
yes.
doing all these wonderful things, but they have they're wired differently. And I think as long as you can show the respect of, I'm not out there engineering a freaking road. Like, I'm doing marketing for that tollway. But, if you can just be respectful and try to give that analogy, it makes it a little easier. But it's a thing, and it happens too frequently. No. So it's part of our brand development process, our brand architecture process. It's adjectives around a brand.
Does that answer your question?
I think somebody's giving them side conversation. adjectives that describe your brand. So the 4 or 5 adjectives, and it has to be adjectives. It can't be nouns. So because that sets the tone of all of your written or your creative graphic communication. So all the things that you look at that you put out, whether it's a a PDF or a social media post, or it's a 5-line email that you're sending out, it should all pass that personality test, which are those 4 or 5 personality words or those 4 or 5 adjectives that you defined that is your brand.
Yeah, and I think it's an example could be is that your friend. If you have a best friend and you have what are the first 4 words when you talk about her? Pop up in your head. 4 adjectives about your best friend. What you can think about. The way that those 4 adjectives that you talk about your best friend are exactly in reference to your brand. That is how you wanna align with that.
And I think it's important, and even if you are like a solopreneur or whatever, you need to think about it like, are you just starting up your own agency?
Yep.
Yes, part of your personality is that, but I don't know, I can't remember who was saying when they were developing, like when I started my business whenever I had a group of people who knew me from all different facets of life, help me take me through the branding process because I want to be larger than me. I want Front Porch Marketing to live beyond Julie Porter. So this is not about me. So that's important to when it is about the brand, it's not about the person, it's not about the CEO, it's not about whoever thinks they're in charge. The brand needs to live on besides a person.
You're giving your company a personality. Like in 2 sentences, how someone would say thank you. My husband would just say thank you. I would say, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Do you see the difference there? That's the same
Exactly.
for companies.
Yeah.
My nonprofit, we're serving families, so we're a little bit more relaxed. All of our colors are primary. We're going to use a lot of different emojis. Private equity, we're going to be very precise in our conversation and professional because that's who we're tailoring our messaging
Yes,
to, and that's
exactly.
who we're
Yeah.
wanting to
And
target.
that's what your
Yeah.
audience expects.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and that's what they expect. Exactly.
Yeah, and I think for my company, Why Communicate, when I did like the brand identity process, one of the things in addition to adjectives and as well as everything else that I described in the brand heart, I also look at color as well. Color also gives another area of your personality. When I chose my colors, one of the first things that popped up in my head from as a communications pro is trust. And when I looked at trust, which color aligns with trust? Blue.
Mhm.
And so, surrounding with that, that is how I started to develop my brand personality and my brand heart. Now, I want to do a quick little interactive exercise. When you think, obviously, I'm from New York City, media capital of the world. When I talk about New York City, what is the first thing that pops into your head when you think about New York City?
Fashion.
Building, yes. Who else? Come on, don't be shy. Come on. Times Square. Here you go. What was that? I'm sorry. Big Apple. There you go. You start seeing everything that aligns about New York City, the fashion, Times Square, the buildings, and everything else in between. That creates the personality of New York City because we all know how iconic it is. I'll give you another example that symbolizes New York. The New York Yankees. Look at their iconic brand logo, the interlocking NY. It is global. It is you absolutely see it everywhere. And when people look at that, they automatically assume it not only associates with New York, but it also associates with the sports team, which is the New York Yankees, and it associates winning. And it's also my beloved team, by the way, which by the way,
And we could talk about sports
you.
forever, and that's a whole different
No, I
subject.
can't.
So is there any other questions?
I'm out.
We have time for one more question or closing thoughts, ladies?
well, yes, I know, Mike. You and I are gonna have our fair share of baseball conversations.
Well,
But
I'm just saying I'm from
I'm out.
Texas, so Astros and Rangers. Just okay. Thank you all so much for your time.
Go sports.
Appreciate it, yeah, ladies.
Thank you, ladies. Big round of applause. Thank you so much, ladies. That was extremely illuminating. Ever wondered how some profiles on LinkedIn seem to have all the limelight, attracting opportunities and networks like magnets? Our next fireside chat on the topic, From Invisible to Influencer, Secrets to Shine on LinkedIn, uncovers the strategies that can turn you from a silent spectator to a leading voice in your industry of the world's biggest profession platform. You've met these two lovely folks before. They are wicked charismatic, awesome, and we love to hear their advice. Dave Mankin, founder of Nexus 6, and Danielle Erica, CEO and co-founder of True Workspace. Big round of applause for our next two speakers. You guys have mics? Okay.
Cool.
All right, you two, you got 45 good minutes. Whenever you're ready.
Thanks, everyone. It's been a wonderful conference and sticking through hearing about LinkedIn. Excited to be here. I just wanted to get started with kind of some of the topics we wanted to go over to give you kind of a heads up. We wanted to talk about LinkedIn as the power of leveraging your network. So basically, how to use your network to grow your presence online, not just on LinkedIn, but in general. And then also, number two would be personal profiles and how your photo and your logo and updating your personal LinkedIn profile can really make you stand out from the crowd. Number three, message about how you can use LinkedIn as a CRM tool. It works with many CRMs and how you can leverage that. Number four, we wanted to kind of mention Sales Navigator as a great way to reach out to connections. Number five, email newsletters through LinkedIn, how they simplify the newsletter process. And number six, live events on LinkedIn. Seven, we can mention blogging. Number eight, positive AI, and everything is AI in 2024, so we can talk a little bit about that. And then number nine, I wanted to bring up LinkedIn's consistent look and feel as far as branding, and then 10, just end on video posts on LinkedIn. So why don't we get started first? I'll leave it over to Dave. How about we leverage social networks through the LinkedIn platform to increase our brand or our personal profiles?
Well, I think like any social media platform, the goal is to have a conversation, right? I think there's too many. If you kind of go on other sites, other social media platforms, it'll be people are like, I ate a salad,
Yeah.
or I went to the gym.
Yeah.
It's like, congratulations, I didn't. And so, right. But I think so. LinkedIn is really, kind of the purpose is kind of right in the name. It's social. It's it's kind of starting a conversation with your network, and I think eh, really being able to connect with people from all different aspects, backgrounds, and just kind of really growing your audience and getting exposure to not just who you know, but who your network knows is really kind of invaluable.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, Dave. I think to think of LinkedIn, think about it's like a global yellow pages meets resume meets social network. So it has some of the best components of like an Instagram or a Facebook, but it's much more focused on your professional persona. And it should be rooted in the reality of your resume and your reality of your business. But it should also help you understand how other people that are leaders in your industry how they're connecting, what kind of content they're creating. LinkedIn company pages is an amazing way to grow your brand. If your company does not have a LinkedIn company page, that's updating. I would say weekly for most brands. I've seen some major brands updated every 2 or 3 days, two or three times a week. I would recommend at least once a week, and definitely once a month. You should be posting on the LinkedIn company page for your company or your client's company because it's inexpensive, virtually free. You can boost the post, but also it really helps leverage who you know directly. So let's say you have 500 friends or 1,000 friends, or some influencers may have 15, 20,000 people following them, but then all the people that they know. So I know when I was at UCLA, they talked about the power of sociology. And really what it is that I know Dave, I'm getting to know him. I may know someone else in the audience, but that person in the audience might know five other people. And I need to know the person in the audience. I might tangentially know them, but then by the power of social networks such as LinkedIn, I immediately can reach out to them saying, "Hey, can you introduce me to, the five doctors in your neighborhood that might want my product, or the five CPAs in your neighborhood that might need my services." So to think of LinkedIn as your digital platform for growing and expanding your network is really essential and key. Okay, I guess we can go on to personal profiles and sales and leveraging a logo and a great profile picture. You can go.
I think having a up-to-date picture is always a good thing. It's always when people have one from like taken in the 80s. It's always not that I feel like people are trying to catfish me on LinkedIn, but sometimes it feels like that. Um, I'd shy away from being too salesy in your little tagline, because anytime I get like an invite from somebody that's like, I can help you get 40 sales leads a week. Like, I just, you kind of ignore them, right? Because if that's
Too
the
salesy.
first part of the
Yeah.
conversation is I'm gonna do this for you, and because then it's like if you hit accept, the next thing is your DM is bloop, let's schedule a meeting. So again, be more personable, be yourself. And again, it kind of comes back to the last conversation about living your brand, right? So kind of know your voice, know your style, and just make sure that that's consistent through everything, including your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, Dave. I think to think of your communication on LinkedIn, like any social media platform, is that it's pretty much, in stone. So if you write something irreverent and funny, take in consideration that this is more of a professional um, facing, maybe you would put something more funny or a meme on Twitter or on Instagram or Facebook. But I would say for LinkedIn, keep it more professional. Keep it, HR recruiters are using it to hire you, or for to you might be leveraging HR companies to hire within your own company. So I would say keep it professional, a nice looking picture that's clear, well lit, and then also a tagline. I think taglines, what he's saying too is don't be so aggressive. Like it can be, your one liner, sales generation expert who's written, a best-selling book or something more compelling than that, but you get the point. But if you're just like, meet me and I'll make you $1 million in ARR in 10 days, it's like it can be kind of aggressive, and too salesy does not work on LinkedIn. I've been on a lot of calls and been through a lot of marketing events and things like this where we've talked about LinkedIn, and I think the leverage, the power of it is to be authentic. I think through this whole conference we've been talking about branding and brand building, and we're in 2024. People have been doing digital marketing for over 20 years. People can read, inauthentic, brands a mile away. So you want your profile to reflect your honest abilities, your honest persona, and also approachable. Right? You don't want to seem so unapproachable that no one wants to reach out to you if they're a friend of a friend. So that's something to highlight. So let's move on to maybe using LinkedIn as a CRM tool. So if you know that many CRMs like HubSpot or Salesforce, they all have Zoho, they all have plugins with LinkedIn. And so LinkedIn Sales Navigator, using the LinkedIn tool through your CRM is an excellent way to populate your database with amazing information. I know with one company I was working with, we used Apollo.io and Salesforce, and we had the most amazing results because we would basically have their contact information, their name, their address, their phone number, their email. But then with LinkedIn, we could see all of their connections, how long they've been at the company, all these just rich details that made the conversation so much more. I would say targeted and more useful, right? Like if I come to you and I say, hey, I know you've been doing medical sales for 15 years and you worked at the company that my other sales manager worked at for 2 years, maybe we should meet next week. That's a very compelling statement versus, hey, I can save you $200,000 tomorrow and with no proof that it could happen, right? So I think with using the Sales Navigator plugins for CRM, it's a very, very useful, time saving, and can create really rich conversations because you find points where you can come together, that you have common interests.
I agree. I also am awful with names.
Okay, yeah.
So I always use it before walking into a meeting. I'm like, who is this person? And then I just look them up because if I'm usually connected with them. And again, that's why it's beneficial to have an up-to-date picture because then I'll actually know who it is. So
Yeah, and I think researching someone before you go into a meeting. I know I was at one company and they said, "Oh, don't do that. You should just be authentic and just let the person tell about themselves." But then we actually did an A/B test where we took I think about 5 meetings where we didn't do the LinkedIn more than like 4 or 5 minutes of LinkedIn research, and then we did about 4 or 5 meetings where we did like a half an hour LinkedIn research, basically looking up the companies they worked for, looking up the schools, seeing if we knew anybody that went to those schools, and all these kinds of things. And the meetings where we did the research went way better. And the reason why is because people felt like we took time and energy to care about them, to care about their story, to care about their employment history, to care about their lives. Oh, we saw that you lived in, Alabama, but then you moved to Florida. We have an office in Florida. Are you interested in meeting in the office in Florida? Because we know you're in Boston right now. I mean, there's so much details that you can do to make the conversations in sales or partnerships or even in employment, hiring or opportunities for yourself. It makes a more rich conversation. And thinking in 2024 and beyond, really being able to have meaningful conversations is really the I would say one of the benefits of being in a digital era. Years ago, you might have to, before Facebook went digital, they used to have paper books with all your history or who's who of American people in paper books. But, they were, I mean, this is so long ago, but they did have that. But now, in the 21st century, I know they did have that, right? I know, and anyone in here, I know it's a funny point because it's like we're so post 2000, we forget that. But we should take advantage of these digital tools and make the conversations as poignant, as meaningful, and also you'll have a higher ROI on your sales calls because people feel like you authentically care about them and you can understand their needs better. So let's move on. Um, how about newsletters through LinkedIn? Do you have experience doing newsletters through LinkedIn, Dave?
um, yeah, I think it's again like any tool though is knowing your audience first. I wouldn't say that every company or client that I have should have a LinkedIn newsletter. It's kind of understanding where your target market is, and then again, it's really if you are going to do a newsletter, and kind of back to the point from the last one is how many newsletters do you really want, right? So it's if you're going to do it, make sure that there's an actual value
Mm-hmm.
to it. That again, people are selfish. They want to. What's in it for me, right? And if you can't really spell out what's in it for me, people aren't going to read it. Um, but yeah, so yes, it's great. It's a fantastic tool. It's a great way to kind of expand the message beyond just a written post. So I've used it for a lot of more of the um, business orient, like a B2B client is fantastic. And if a B2B, if you're, and then but making sure that a you're inviting the right types of people to join it. There's no sense in inviting 1,000 people to read your LinkedIn newsletter if 1,000 of them work at McDonald's, right? You're like, oh, I've got 1,000 subscribers. Cool, but who's actually getting any benefit out of it?
Yeah, I think the point of it would probably be better, and I have read research to this, and I've also experienced in my own career, is I would probably better to have 500 subscribers that really read your newsletter once a month, that actually take actionable, where they're going to say, oh yes, message me in 3 months, or I might buy it in a year. The point of a newsletter is to be a touch point for branding. But if you're putting out fluff once a week and everyone unsubscribes, then it wasn't a useful use of your time or your customers' time, and it could repel potential customers. So it needs to be poignant. It needs to be adding value. I think someone mentioned, like, do we want anybody want another newsletter? I think it depends on your market, right? If it's a very research heavy, education focused sale, right? Like you're selling, $20,000 a year software, or you're selling medical devices, or you're doing AI research. Those kind of topics, they might need a weekly or monthly newsletter to show all the updates, and they won't find that in the major media. If you're doing B2C, LinkedIn might not be the best use of your time. It is more B2B focused, and if all the people subscribing to your newsletter probably won't purchase your product, then you might want to focus on leads other places. But I would say right now, last time I checked, LinkedIn has over 1 billion subscribers, and a huge amount of professionals are on LinkedIn. Depending on their vertical, certain professions are not as active, so you need to keep that in mind. But with LinkedIn Navigator, you can figure out who your target market is. Let's say you're in Tampa, Florida, and you're trying to connect with CPAs. You can go through LinkedIn Navigator and find out how many CPAs are in Tampa, Florida, and then you can see who you're connected to and who your friends are connected to, and you can say secondary connections. I'd like to do a campaign targeting those people, and then it doesn't need to be robotic, where you just say, hey, can I like your profile? Can we connect? Can we meet next week? Those are not compelling. I think Dave's seen those too, where you get a lot of inbound LinkedIn's that are very stale and very, written by a bot. That's not going to go anywhere in 2024. I think maybe 5 years ago, when people didn't have as many LinkedIn connections, but now make it authentic. You can, customize the text. There's a couple of different CRM tools that help you customize the text based on people's profiles, or just take time, have a marketing assistant, reach out through Sales Navigator with, more specific messages saying, hey, we're opening an office in Miami. We know you're in Tampa. Would you like to meet our new Miami office? Those kinds of things make the conversation more impactful, right? I mean, that's what we want. We want return on investment. We want great marketing. We want great branding. And that's in 2024 is all about being authentic. So let's move on to, you want to talk about AI and content generation? That might be a good topic.
I use AI all the time. Um, mainly, I'm really lazy, and
At
so
least it's honest.
like the concept of like writing a LinkedIn post is just like, ugh, I don't want to do that, right? But if I'm riding up the escalator and I'm like, I kind of know what I want to talk about, and if I can just feed it to the program and say, these are the highlights I want to talk about, write me something compelling. I use, so I don't know if anybody uses this, but I use Copilot. I know there's been a lot of chat about ChatGPT. So Microsoft spent, I was like over $2 billion,
Yeah.
and they bought like 40% of OpenAI. So Microsoft is really plugging OpenAI. So OpenAI is the parent company of ChatGPT, Dolly, which is the image creator. And if you haven't seen it yet, you should go check it out. They've integrated their AI with Unreal Engine 5. And so Unreal Engine 5 is usually, or the Unreal Engine was largely in video games. So it would actually, video games, physics, lighting, all these type of things. They've got to the point with Unreal Engine 5 that it looks real, right? It's creepy because you can't tell now it's a video game. Disney has been using it. So if you've seen The Mandalorian, they have this big curved screen behind the set. And so rather than having a green screen where the actors will be like, oh, I'm going to pretend that I'm on this planet, they'll actually use the Unreal Engine to actually generate the imagery behind them. So but it's actually tracked with the cameras. So as the camera moves, the screens in the back move. And so it you give the feeling you're there. Now, OpenAI has actually now integrated this into the chat feature. So now it's not just imagery. You can tell it what you want to see, and it will generate video based in AI using the Unreal Engine 5. So, kind of coming back to it, I use Copilot from Microsoft. The reason I do that is because they own a good chunk of OpenAI, you get ChatGPT 4 for free. Whereas with ChatGPT, if you go straight through them, it's like $20 a month, or the free version is 3.5. The difference between 3.5 and 4 is 3.5 kind of tapped out on its knowledge base in like 21, whereas
For
4
active.
actually is
Well,
connected to the internet.
yes.
So if you go to Copilot and you flick on the little button that says ChatGPT 4, you can choose from creative, balanced, and then more precise. So what I'll do is I'll say, because branding for me always has a Sasquatch. And so there's not a lot of stock photos of Sasquatches doing the things that I want them to. Right? So you can look at my LinkedIn feed. I've got a Sasquatch sitting on like a overpass in Vegas. Um, so you'll go and I'll say, I'm in Vegas, blah blah blah. So I want to see this. Comes out with a picture. It's awesome. There's a couple of tweaks you have to do. Then you take that and you're like, okay, this is the story behind the picture. So these are the highlights. This is what I want to talk about. I'm too lazy to do it, so just give me something. And usually with a couple of tweaks, you can get it done. But the Copilot has an app for your phone. So if I'm cruising somewhere, I'm riding the escalator, I'll knock out like a post, this really long, kind of well thought out post and the graphic with a Sasquatch. Everybody's, oh man, wow, they think it's great. And I'm like, whatever. I was on an elevator and I was just killing time. But again, it's to propel the conversation. And I think AI is great, but having the concept and the content strategy behind it, it's only as good as what you feed.
It's garbage in, it's garbage out, I think. Someone I know says that. I think it's really important to think about, generative AI and the next generation of AI. It's really a helpful tool. So I think, especially if you're an agency or you're a mid-sized marketing department, have your marketing assistant just become an expert and then review their posts, because maybe before you might have to have a senior copywriter, you might have to have a graphic designer, you might have to have reviewed by 3 or 4 different people. But you'd be surprised with AI tools. And I also like Jasper.ai. I think someone else mentioned that. That's a great tool. I had some really good experience with that. I think we did write one post and someone said, did AI write this? Because this seems a little sterile and insincere. And I was like, oh, shoot. I didn't catch that. It seemed more research because for a medical company. So I thought it seemed more academic. But so you need to make sure that your audience also reads it, because the ChatGPT or the Jasper.ai, we're still in the first generations of it. So it's not perfect. But it also can give you some great ideas. I think when I was using some of the tools, I was like, wow, I didn't really think of it from that perspective. So you don't necessarily have to use a copy that the AI generates or even the image that the AI generates. Sometimes it'll generate, like you said, a Sasquatch reading a newspaper in Vegas, and you might have thought, Sasquatch going shopping in Vegas. So it's always something to use for your own brand voice, to augment your marketing efforts, and to make your life easier and more, I would say, more productive. I mean, we're living in the 21st century, and the tools that are available to us were just dreams, 50 years ago. So we should be proactive and use them to our best of our abilities. And you'd be surprised. It can cut time to market and time to creating these kind of posts and make them more compelling. I think that's really the goal, is to make content as compelling as possible. ChatGPT, scurrying the whole internet and coming up with every idea under the sun. It's pretty much impossible for a human being to do that kind of work. We're not there yet where AI is smarter than humans, and hopefully that's not something that is a big issue for us. But I think to use it to, in the case of posting on social media like LinkedIn, it's a great tool. Let's move on to branding and consistent look and feel around social media posting, especially how it relates to LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think uh, uh, even regardless of how big your brand is, if you do something that's kind of slightly inconsistent with what people have come to expect from it, people get really upset, right?
Yeah.
Like new Coke. Like, what are you doing with new Coke, man? Why is this new? I was okay with the last Coke, right? And it's just, and so they had to backtrack on that, right? And we talked about, kind of earlier on with like Bud Light. Know your audience, man.
That's terrible.
Know your audience. I mean, I'm not trying to be a dick, but it's like, if you're drinking Bud Light, you're probably not like a social justice warrior, right? I mean, um, right, and it's just like, okay, cool. So like, let's have some brand consistencies. Let's understand who you really are and who you're looking to actually, speak to, and keeping it consistent because, people do not like change. They say they do. They say, "Oh, I'd love a change," but presented with too much or too many options, they kind of they get they kind of stiffen up and they can't make a decision. And so if they've come to expect something from a brand and that's what they want, keep it the same. And I know it sounds boring, but it's alienate a big portion. I mean, Batman Returns, not 89,
There you
89.
go. There you go.
Batman Returns. Um, so McDonald's had a huge fallout because they were they started putting Batman Returns things in their Happy Meals, right? And then people went and saw the movie and they're like, oh, he pushed a woman out the window. Oh, that guy bit guy's nose. And like, this isn't family friendly. And so there was such a brand disconnect between the messaging that McDonald's was saying, like, go take your kids here. And then they're like, no, don't take your kids here. And so it's being consistent on all platforms, because if you have different messaging on LinkedIn and then they get to your website and it's a different look and feel, people are going to be confused and they're going to be like, this is not what I signed up for.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. I think, something to think about with any kind of social media platform, but especially one as professional and as B2B focused as LinkedIn, is that you want to keep your iconography consistent. I know I've done it where I've had to change my font, and I had a few people email me saying, I don't know what is up with this new font that you're using. It looks terrible. And I was like, oh, I didn't know. We're like not that big of a company, but I have heard major companies have fonts created for their logo and their use for social media postings and all their. So I think about the font text, think about the colors. I mean, this is kind of branding 101, but you'd be surprised when you're hiring out freelancers or you're hiring people for your department. You really have to train them to use the right color schemes, the right fonts, the right looks. Have your taglines, have everything, and then if you change it universally, right? You need to change it on Instagram. You need to change it on Facebook. You need to change it on Twitter. And then you need to change it on LinkedIn and your website, right? So, and your PDF. PDFs and all your marketing collateral. So, I think think about, I think someone mentioned a brand audit. If you do something new, you should do it universally. And LinkedIn is probably one where you're gonna get caught. Like people will say, "Hey, what happened? This is like your colors were yellow and green and purple, and now it's purple, blue, and yellow." And so yeah, yeah. So you have to think about, creating the brand that you want to stick with, that you like, that represents your product, your the what you're trying to convey with your look and feel, and just make sure that your posts are consistent. And you'd be surprised. I sometimes felt like posting similar type of images. I thought this is kind of boring, but I would tell you sometimes the seventh or eighth post that looked similar, the page views went skyrocketing. It was incredible. Some people really like. I think there was a study that said people have to see a topic of information 3 times before it actually imprints to their memory. So you have to think about, if you're posting on LinkedIn with, a similar type of graphic, let's say, it's a sales, we're going to have a big Super Bowl party or something like that, launch it after the Super Bowl. You do 3 ads with the same look and feel. By the fourth one, you're probably going to get a lot more impressions, because people will finally stop and read what the post says. So that's something to think about with the look and feel of your posts on LinkedIn, to keep it consistent, keep the fonts consistent, and keep it compelling with your overall brand messaging. I wanted to speak a little bit about video marketing and how that might relate to LinkedIn.
Yeah. So that's tricky because uh, video marketing done well can be very impactful, but doing it poorly is more of a negative impact on kind of the business, right? So if you because we worked with a lighting company out of Manhattan, and they were doing a bunch of this like LED lights and all this really smart stuff. And I said, they were talking about how they were gonna kind of brand, and I said, the one thing about lighting is nobody notices if it's good lighting, right? Like you just expect things to be well lit. If you walk into a room and it's well lit, you're like, you don't notice it, but you will notice if you enter a room and it's kind of, you know,
Poorly lit.
right, and it's poorly lit and there's shadows and you're like, ah. So again, with video, right, is if you take video and it's poorly lit, and even the sound quality, if
Yeah.
there's an echo, you will notice, like, not to pick on chiropractors, but I will. I've seen like so many chiropractors, they'll just stand in their office and be like, hey, and there's an echo, and like they're lit from the side, and they're casting a shadow, and it's cheap, and it comes across that. And I think everyone is just so used to high production values of videos. Like Mr. Beast, I think spends $1 million an episode to produce it, right? Like I wish that was my problem, right? But $1 million to produce that, and it's so. I would say do it if you can do it well, but just like you wouldn't put out a poorly designed piece, like a poorly designed marketing slick, right?
PDF, yeah.
Yeah, so why would you go ahead and put out a poorly executed video, because it's more of a negative impact on your business?
Yeah, I think quality video content, I mean, obviously YouTubers, there's great YouTube content. And I would say some of the better LinkedIn content that's more actionable is, insightful. Maybe it's a story. In the case of a chiropractor, if they hire an agency or a small video production company, or even today with a nice iPhone and someone that has some video production experience, you can do amazing work. So I think just be cognizant of the production quality. I lived in Los Angeles for a long time, and I knew a lot of people in the film and entertainment industry, and they were saying that really social media, mostly focused on Instagram, but you can do similar type of marketing on LinkedIn and create amazing videos. I don't like the term viral videos because I think it's overused, and virality by nature is not that positive. So, but it's like one of those not, oxymorons. Like we want things to go viral, but we really don't want a virus. But anyway, the point is that a video that hits critical mass or gets a lot of views is usually something that is well lit. It has an interesting message. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's ironic, sometimes it has a great quote. I've seen a lot of messages on LinkedIn that are more just like positivity or motivational speakers talking about a specific topic. And so just think about when you're doing your LinkedIn marketing strategy, think about static images, think about blog posts, think about newsletters, but also incorporate possible video marketing strategies and how you can create compelling video content, because I'm with True Workspace and we are a video messaging platform. It's very, and so I'm bullish about the future of the internet being video first. So I think LinkedIn has done a great job with that. And so to keep that in mind with your, bless you, with your video marketing strategy. And then I wanted to maybe touch on LinkedIn Learning. Do you want to talk about that at all? Have you experimented with that?
I've learned everything there is to know. No, I think it's again, I think it's an invaluable tool to. We've had employees come through the agency that where there's just a ton of different kind of learning material to access through LinkedIn Learning for sure.
Yeah, to highlight what LinkedIn Learning, which you have to. I was looking on the phone. At least the app I have on the phone didn't have it on there, but I think it does have a special its own app now where you can download on the mobile phone LinkedIn Learning app. But within, especially the desktop version of LinkedIn, you can take classes, and this is amazing. They acquired Lynda.com years ago. I actually met some of the people that were part of the team of LinkedIn years ago, and it was such an innovative idea. So the fact that, and they were going to charge like $100 a month or $300 a month, and it's nominal amount, and you can learn so much. I mean, I had some junior social media people working with me, and they spent like 2 or 3 weeks going through 4 or 5 classes on LinkedIn. And the next thing I know, they're like, "Oh, this is how we do this. This is how we do this." I was like, "Oh, was that from your LinkedIn learning class? Okay, great." So it's a great way to learn different tools and skill sets. And then now on your LinkedIn profile, you can add that you have a certificate in a certain LinkedIn class. So that's a great way if you're looking to grow your resume or grow your profile. Say, hey, I took the LinkedIn learning class on databases, or LinkedIn learning class on HR recruiting. And actually, I have hired people with some LinkedIn skill sets, and when I interviewed them, I was actually very pleasantly surprised at how well they said that their LinkedIn classes helped them with their career. So those were the main points I wanted to go through. Do you want to leave it open for questions, or do you have more?
Yeah, I guess the only one I was going to say is that the kind of the title influencer, I think kind of sometimes suggests that you have a huge audience. Like we always think, oh, these influencers, um, which I don't think is necessarily true. I think if to be truly an influencer, it's you impact people in a positive way on kind of what you're talking about. You don't have to have a massive audience because I mean, if you look at any of these, quote unquote influencers online, just from the nature of the internet, there's 50% of the people that are saying, "Oh, you're so beautiful. Oh my God, I love you." And then there's the other ones that are just tearing them down. So it's just like, if that's the cost of being an influencer, is like, or just have a huge following, or have a smaller following that have a bunch of people that actually look up to you and look at you as a thought leader.
Yeah,
I'd go for
I love
I'd
that.
go for 10 people that I could, actually impact their life with some insights than I would have 100,000, people that I didn't know or didn't, just kind of
Weren't your
this
audience.
kind of faux interest.
I think it's a great thing to think about is when you're acquiring your followers, or you're looking to grow your audience. Make sure that you're getting an audience that really you can make an impact on, and they're positive people that aren't just trolling you. I know it sounds kind of maybe odd or cruel, but really, Twitter and LinkedIn. LinkedIn is actually better, I think, than Instagram and Twitter. People are more professional, and I actually do know people that have gotten their profiles kicked off of LinkedIn because they DM'd people, they trolled people, and I actually have, I think once or twice, I emailed LinkedIn and said this person's comment was very rude, and then they emailed me and they said, okay, their profile will not show as, I think, available, like limit how many people they can connect with a month or something. So they do have policies in place to make sure the trolling's less. And then just think about, if you're posting positive, amazing content about your brand, about your product, about your services, you're going to get amazing people, and if you spend time, targeting them through the LinkedIn app, that's a great way. You can buy ads to target people that you're looking to grow your audience, and you'll get the right people. So, keep a positive, attitude, be thoughtful, if you have a lot of, you know, content that I would say is more um, like too salesy or inauthentic, you might get some people that are kind of, not helpful, trying to sell you something. You think that they're trying to buy your product, but then they're trying to sell you a product. It's very odd. So, like anything else in the world, it's only as good as you, put guardrails around it. So, but I think in general, LinkedIn's a very positive place, and you can really grow an amazing audience. I know one guy who went from, I think maybe like 1,500 followers on LinkedIn, and then he paid an agency to grow his audience around a specific topic within software because he wanted to be an expert and speak at conferences and things like that. And within 12 months, he got over 100,000 quality followers, and then many of them became customers. So it's a great way to think about, you know, educating your audience should be so that they know you more. I do like Grant Cardone, and he's famous for saying, your biggest problem with your business is nobody knows who the heck you are. And I think that's a great way of thinking about branding and, your own influence is that, if people like your brand, resonate with the content that they see, then, 3 months later, 6 months later, maybe it's 2 years later, they say, oh, yeah, I've been reading his newsletter for years. I think the first person I'm going to call is Dave, or first, I need a B2B software. I'm going to call Danielle at True Workspace. And those are the kind of best customers to have. Those long-term customers that value your product, trust you, and believe that your product is useful and helpful, and overall going to positively impact their lives. So, I guess we have time for questions or any more. I don't think so. Maybe it's are you using a tool that's not letting you publish on LinkedIn? Yeah. Oh, is it Vidyard? ScreenYard. I'm not familiar with ScreenYard. I'm familiar with Vidyard, Vidyard. Yeah, just research that. You can on YouTube. There's a lot of how-to videos about how to post on LinkedIn. So I wouldn't worry about that. I think in general, I've seen people with 500 followers and they post a story about they went traveled here and they have video content or things like that. So I wouldn't worry about that. Any more questions? Yeah. Exactly. That is honestly, that is one of the most difficult questions that I have around LinkedIn is are all the people that you're connected to people that you know and you could recommend, right? And I know that I have got I have had a lot of inbound requests to follow me on LinkedIn or to connect with me on LinkedIn. But now they do have the feature where they can just follow you and get your content, but you're not necessarily connected. So that might be something where you can say, hey, my audience is getting too large. I have 3,000 people I'm connected with, and I'm trying to slim down my audience. Please go ahead and use this link to follow me, and you can keep up with my content. I have seen some people do that. I heard that they've done that successfully. So it's something to think about. It depends on how your sales cycle is. If you want to cast a wide net, then I wouldn't delete them. But if you're selling a very specific product, education software for university professors, and you have all these people that aren't related, you might want to think about deleting them. The only thing with deleting them is that if they do remember you, and then 2 or 3 years later that you think you have to make sure you back it up on an Excel chart or something like that with their name and their information, because you might not you might need that contact. So, but you can export all your contacts on LinkedIn. Yeah, she's saying don't do it. So I know people that have, though. Yeah, I know people that have deleted contacts. Yeah, I think it's a personal choice. It depends on who you're connecting with, why you're connecting with them. If yeah, if you back it up on Excel, you'd be surprised. Many of the people that you can send them a connect request again, and they'll connect with you, especially if you say, hey, we were connected a long time ago. I was working at this company. Now I want to connect with you again. So, it's not set in stone. It's just a social network. I know people have done that with, 5,000 people followers on or friends on Facebook, and they've been fine. So, just think about it. As far as your purpose and how wide a net you want to cast. So, any more questions?
Uh, Mike, were you just asking that question because you want to delete my contacts? I'm gonna look at my LinkedIn to see if we're still connected.
Delete, friend delete, right? That's a social media problem. Yeah.
Any last thoughts from our panel?
On your profile, I think some of the things we talked about is, make sure your professional profile includes, a great picture, a logo of your company or a brand. What kind of work do you do? Your writer, yeah. So you might want to do a tagline about writing. You want to make sure that you could put author as part of your story. You can say, author wrote this book, and put a link to the book on Amazon. You could say the papers that you publish. So, there's a lot of great content around how to specifically optimize your LinkedIn profile. But I think the basics are, make sure that your profile looks good, your header looks great, and that you fill out your profile completely with links to some of your other content. That's helpful.
I would just say, just make sure you're putting out compelling content that people want to interact with, like, share, um, rather than don't post for the sake of posting. Yeah, like it just, and again, I think it comes back to